A big Thursday in Milwaukee, rematch of the finals, of course, but this is Locked On Brewers.
You are Locked On Brewers, your daily Milwaukee Brewers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Good morning or afternoon, whenever you may be listening to here on Locked On Brewers. But nonetheless, thanks for making us your first listen of the day. I'm Dominic Cotroneo, play-by-play man, now statistician with Valley Sports Wisconsin, along with Vinny Rattino, former big leaguer and former Brewer, of course, now turned broadcaster. We are here with all your news of the day that pertains to the Brewers and Major League Baseball as we move forward with the lockout. And right here at the top of the show, Vinny, we do have some sad news to report. Gerald Williams and Jeremy Giambi, both big leaguers, passed away in the last 2 days. Jeremy, just 55 years old, of course, known infamously for the not sliding at home plate in 2002, but he was a great player, and a lot of folks rave about him in the clubhouse of being a great teammate. And when I refer to not sliding, the play with Derek Jeter in the Coliseum on the flip, amazing play by Jeter. Everyone says, well, why didn't Jeremy slide? There's a great piece in The Athletic talking about that. So rest in peace to Jeremy, and we wish the best to his family. And Gerald Williams passed away after a battle with cancer, a brief Brewer. And Vinny, I know you've got a fun story to tell about Gerald Williams that you posted on your Instagram this week.
Yeah, well, first of all, I heard he was just a tremendous person and a tremendous clubhouse guy as well. Jason Schauger, the Brewers clubhouse manager, he was really good friends with him, especially when he played, obviously, for the Brewers back in 96 and 97. And just a tremendous guy, but was really known for how tight he wore his baseball pants, and that's kind of what Jason Schauger remembered about him. But I did talk to Schauger and wish my condolences to him because, again, he was friends with him, and he was known throughout the game as just being a tremendous person, a tremendous teammate. But yeah, really quick fun story. In 1997, I was a junior, finishing up my junior year of high school. Played hooky for half the day and went to the Brewer game with my best friend, Phil Breitschaft. He and I went to the game. There was nobody in the left field bleachers. Mo Vaughn hits a home run. The Brewers were winning 1-0. Hits a questionable fair foul home run. Ends up being called fair. I scamper over and grab the ball because literally there's nobody in that section. I'm holding up the ball and saying that was not a fair ball. It was a foul ball. Gerald Williams is pointing at us. He's playing left field. He's pointing at Phil and I, saying, see, it's foul, because we're standing right next to the foul pole in foul territory. Umpire calls it fair. Obviously, everyone's chanting, throw it back. I chuck the ball back onto the field. Anyway, fast forward to the next day. I'm like this in the front page of the Milwaukee. At the time, it was the Milwaukee Sentinel, not the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. Ball in my hand next to the foul pole in foul territory. Gerald Williams pointing at us. And I have that picture to this day. We got the print of it, or the, what do you call that? The proof of it. And it's in my parents' house. It's at my folks' house, actually, in my dad's den. So anyway, that's my Gerald Williams story. I never knew him, but again, thoughts and prayers go to his family.
It's a great story. That's a lot of fun and a good way to remember. And I misspoke. Quick second. Gerald Williams passed away at the age of 55. Jeremy Giambi was 47. So our thoughts are out to their families and everybody who knew them. Again, two great stories to tell from all of their teammates is what it sounds like from all the outpouring support for these guys. Now, as to today's episode, this is Throwback Thursday as we go back our top 20 games of the season. We are at number 4 and number 3. As we've said all countdown long, number 1 and number 2 are going to be pretty obvious. So these are going to be pretty fun. One, I spoiled earlier this week saying that Rowdy Tellez is involved heavily, being a playoff game. The other game is maybe the most fun game of the year. Fun as in based on the opponent and based on the actual action that was happening. Before we get to all that, let's get to a quick update on where things stand with labor negotiations. Today, this Thursday, is the end of the owners' meetings down in Orlando, which is why you haven't really seen much negotiation happening. The owners will also have Rob Manfred speak to the media for the first time since all of this has really gone down. This should be, appointment viewing, in my opinion, given Rob has said some really questionable things in the past at press conferences, and most notably that I will still never forgive him for is calling the World Series trophy a piece of metal. This is going to be pretty wild to watch. There's rumors that he's going to announce that spring training is delayed. We don't know that for sure, but the news out of it, and maybe it's good news, is that the CBA negotiations will resume allegedly on Saturday, according to Evan Drellich. So as all of this kind of hits pause for, at the worst possible time, what do you take of this news, Vinny, that Manfred's going to speak and apparently negotiations will resume on Saturday?
I mean, it's always encouraging. We just don't know exactly what's going to come of these conversations, and everything that you read, that there is some talk of even delaying the season a little bit if they don't get this hashed out by, they said, the first week of March. And so if it's not hashed out first week of March, they may delay the season, even if there's hope that the season will take place. A delay is just going to be super detrimental. Fans, I was talking to a colleague at work. I have a day job. I don't know if everybody knows that. I didn't at work, and he said we both agree like this is going to be detrimental to baseball, to the sport, if it's not figured out before opening day. This was the first year that he was going to go down with his wife to spring training. So a lot of things like this are probably going to occur, and it's going to give people a bad taste in their mouth. And I don't think you and I have even thought of that and talked about that. Like, fans love spring training, so we don't want that canceled for fans. So, I don't know. It's hard to know what to really think of all this. And again, just with all the drama surrounding this, you just want the fair deal, that we do have to go through this pain. Hopefully there is a fair deal that comes out of it.
And with spring training, though, I've always said since the start of this, I'm totally fine with sacrificing a week or two of spring training if it means we start the season on time.
Right.
I think baseball fans across the board would agree with that. Now, having said that, baseball fans, I understand spring training is a massive, massive, fun tourist activity to do. I'm from Arizona, as you can tell by this Phoenix Suns jersey behind me for tonight's big game. I'm from Phoenix. We are a tourist town. And spring training, when you look back, 2020, it gets, absolutely just demolished halfway through spring training with COVID-19. 2021, they couldn't even operate at full capacities because they were still working their way back from the pandemic. And now 2022, to maybe not even have spring training at all, perhaps to do the summer camp thing again, if negotiations do drag on that long, you got to feel for all of these cities and all these local businesses saying, well, this bump that we normally rely on is suddenly going to be gone. And the onus of that is going to be on this negotiation and against the owners and against the players. It's not an equal blame, or it's not a singular blame. It's an equal blame to both of these parties for not getting it done. Now, I know the owners are going to try to say, oh, well, the players are asking for too much. And the players are going to say, oh, the owners aren't giving enough. The point is get it done. I'm getting to this point now. We're about halfway through February, almost halfway through February. Exactly the time we said you need to have a deal done. We've known this since December 2nd, and they're still dragging their feet. Both sides. I know the players say they're at the table, but this is just a very, very, very complex situation that it's just frustrating me. I'm just at this point where I'm frustrated. I'm going to remain positive, but I'm still frustrated.
No, I know that you're remaining positive, and I actually am relying on you to remain positive and for my source of info with this, because it is very complicated. And if anyone hasn't listened to Dom's podcast a week ago, coming Friday, he does a phenomenal job of just recapping everything and why we are in the situation that we're in, and also does a really good job of just kind of breaking down the basic agreement in general, like with arbitration. Some of this stuff is really complicated, and he breaks it down really well and gives you some understanding as to why the players and the owners are in this situation right now. So give that a listen, and I'll just continue to lean on you for my info, Dom, because you're doing a really good job of that. But yeah, I like how you're staying positive, but I'm with you. I'm getting a little antsy.
I'm just antsy. That's a good word. That's a good way to put it. Antsy is a good way. But let's go down memory lane here. We're doing Throwback Thursday. We are going to go back to games number 4 and number 3. Before we do that, we're going to tell you about Built Bar. This is the time of year, of course, where New Year's resolutions start to go by the wayside. Of course, with the big game this weekend, your diet is going to get crushed. But hey, if your resolution is to eat better, Built Bar can be a part of that strategy. You can even try their brand new puffs. If you haven't, you're missing out on some of their best bars. They're covered in 100% chocolate, but it's a perfect marshmallowy, fluffy treat, and it's actually still good for you. Just like their Built Bars covered in 100% real chocolate, low calorie, high protein, you can replace all your candy bars with Built Bars. Go to Built.com. You can scroll down to their macros chart. If you really want to get deep into the weeds, you'll be blown away by all of their numbers that support what you need out of a healthy diet. 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. Compare that to a candy bar, which usually has around almost 250 calories, 30 grams of sugar, and dozens of carbs. At Built Bar, they're all about taste. They make it delicious and then figure out how to make it healthy. I don't know how, but they pull it off every time. So go to Built.com, promo code LOCKED15. Again, promo code LOCKED15 at Built.com, and you're going to get 15% off your order with that promo code. Let's go back here, Vinny. Game number 4 on our countdown is an important day in the baseball calendar. The reason why, it was June 30th of this past year, the exact halfway point, game number 81 of the season. The Cubs were in town taking on the Brewers, a finale of a 3-game series. The Cubs 42-38, the Brewers 47-33. The context of this: the Brewers are white hot. They've won 7 games in a row. They've won 9 of their last 10, and they have won the first 2 games of this series as well. So they're really, really rolling. And going into this series, if you remember, the Cubs were in the hunt. They were only 3 games back of the Brewers right before this series, and everyone was circled it. All right, this is late June, deadline's next month. This could be the time that it's do or die for the Cubs. And then the Brewers going to win the first 2 games, including a 14-4 drubbing with a 10-run 8th inning earlier in this series. So they're already kicked them while they're down. These are the series that, I know the season is a long, long time, but you can circle a series in June of being one of the most important series of the year for the Brewers.
Yeah, and if fans need to remember as well, this is a Cubs team that still was intact, right? I mean, they had Jock Peterson on their team. Patrick Wisdom was coming into his own. They had Wilson Contreras. Javier Baez was still on the team. Ian Happ. I mean, this is. I know Ian Happ's still a Cub, but it's like you said, it was an important series because the Cubs always play the Brewers tough, and at this point, they had a 6-game lead. I think it's 5.5 or 6.5.
It was 5 heading into this game.
Okay, yeah. So that's not a very big lead in July, and so it was obviously a very big series.
And on the other side of it, for the Cubs, they had lost 5 straight games going into this, and they were in a brutal, brutal portion of their schedule. In their last 4 series leading into this series, they had lost 3 out of 4 against the Mets in New York. They had lost 2 out of 3 at home against the Marlins. They split a 2-game series at home with Cleveland, and they lost 3 out of 4 in LA against the Dodgers. That is a brutal stretch right there. I mean, two of those 4 teams, well, one really made the playoffs. The Mets were expected to make the playoffs last year. They obviously didn't. But all of a sudden, now you're facing the Brewers, the favorite of your division, and you lose the first 2 games. All of a sudden, you would think, all right, they're going to be deflated in the finale on Wednesday, and maybe they'll fall over flat here, and we'll try to, sweep them. Well, they didn't fall flat, to say the least, in the first inning. Aaron Ashby making his big league debut, and you feel for the man. I mean, thank goodness he bounced back, as we know how the rest of the season went for Aaron. But 7 runs in the first inning, 4 of them earned, to be fair, 4 of them earned. But, man, that is the definition of taking it on the chin. What would you even say to a kid like that going into the dugout after that being his big league debut?
You know what? This was an incredible bounce back performance. If that's even how to describe this. It's hard to describe what we saw from Aaron Ashby on the mound that day. This was his major league debut. This was a kid on the big league rubber who you could feel the tension after. I think he went single, walk, single for the first 4 guys. Then there was that double play ball. I think that would have got him out of the inning. The double play ball that got booted by didn't even get 1 out by Willie Adames, and it really created some anxiety for him. You could tell on the mound, and so he really struggled. Obviously, 4 hits, 2/3 of an inning. He threw 39 pitches. How many? 3 walks. So obviously, 7 runs. So, and again, this is in a playoff race against your league for the last however many decades, couple of decades, have been in the division with Cubs. This is your main rival, and he does this. But then he comes. So just to fast forward, this was so impressive with how bad this looked, and then his ability to bounce back and be a completely different guy for the rest of the season. That's what is going to be my takeaway for the rest of this kid's career, because I know this kid's going to be really, really good. But that's going to be like the thing that really stands out to me is his ability to have bounced back and his ability to just kind of like face the media that night after the game. It was absolutely remarkable. Like, you could tell this kid had, you talk about it factor. We had Sal Frelick on the episode. I say this guy has the it factor. This kid really, really does have the it factor, Aaron Ashby, and then some. So this is off the charts. Obviously, there's some pedigree here with his uncle being Andy Ashby, but this was a very, very impressive, as unimpressive of a performance as was, the bounce back was equally as impressive, and then some.
Yeah, I agree entirely.
Yeah.
And I think the stadium was spinning on him after he walked Jake Arrieta with 2 outs. You know, that puts runners on first and second, has to face Wilson Contreras. He walks him on 7 pitches. That's when he got the hook. A broken bat single, scored 2 more. But nonetheless, it's 7-0 Cubs. And if you think, wow, you guys just spent so much time on the Cubs, that's it. That's all the time we have on the Cubs, because they wouldn't score a run the rest of the game. If you remember correctly, this is the game that the Brewers scored 15 unanswered runs against the Cubs after trailing 7-0. But I did learn this wasn't the only time the Brewers had a massive comeback down 7-0. In fact, winning 15-7 wasn't even the best, unanswered run streak. They won a game 20-7 back at Old County Stadium back in the day. 20 unanswered runs against the Angels. I can't imagine what that feels like, but we'll get into the details of this one. But have you ever been in a game where you just roll, where you just nothing stopping you, 15 unanswered? I mean, we talked about it a little bit with the 10-run 8th inning too.
Yeah, I've never experienced a situation like this where you were down by so much and then you come back. Because when you're down 7 runs in the first inning, it's almost like, okay, let's just get to the next one. It's just like erase this game. But then the ability to blow out the team that just started blowing you out, I've never experienced that. What you did read in the article after this game was that the Brewers team kind of knew that they were going to win the entire time, and which was a testament to, again, that winning culture, that winning mindset that they had all year long, where they were going to come back and win any game. I think they really got that feeling, and that really became an identity for them once Willie Adames was added to this team. I don't think they had this until then, this kind of mindset of, and I've been on teams like this where it didn't matter what the score was. The team was in such a good spot. They had such a good feeling in the clubhouse and the dugout that, again, didn't matter what the score was, you knew you were going to come back and win. And that was what was so cool and so telling about this group, about this game.
It was amazing. And not only that, did they believe that they could come back. On the other side, Cubs, they could feel it in that first inning, right? With all the walks from Arrieta, a bases loaded walk from Jace Peterson, scored the first run at 7-1. You're thinking, oh, this is not a big deal. This is going to be fine. But it's wild, because we talk about momentum and it doesn't really exist, but it does exist. Getting the bases loaded after you get punched in the mouth was exactly what you were talking about. It's not that easy to load the bases. Yes, you only got 1 run, but you just proved, hey, we're coming. We're not falling over tonight. Even if you lose 7-1, you made a message. You made a point to the other team saying, we're not going down quietly here. And far from it did they lose the game 7-1. They won the game 15-7 because they score 1 run in the first. Keston Hiura redeems himself in the second inning. Hiura was the one who struck out in the first inning. Hiura gets an infield single in the next inning, and it was all kind of quiet. Craig Counsell credits in the second inning Luis Urias hitting a 2-run home run, of being the time that they realized that they were going to win the game. But you look through the rest of that inning, it's 7-3 after that homer, then an error, and then Hiura gets the infield hit, and all of a sudden you blink and it's 7-6. Like, that's how fast this can happen. It's 7-6 in the second inning. It's bonkers. And I want to say one thing too. I was not working this game. I was caddying, and I had volunteered to caddy 36 holes at Aaron Hills that day. And hey, it's a bigger paycheck. So the between so we tee off at like, I want to say like 9 or 10. At the turn, I checked the score and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's already 7-0 in the first inning. All right, well, I guess they lost this one. I go in. I don't check the score the rest of the round. I go in for my break between rounds. We turn on the game on the TV in the caddy barn, and it's all of a sudden 14-7. I'm like, what did I miss? I was absolutely had some FOMO by missing this game. It was absolutely incredible.
Yeah, I was actually on the golf course too, believe it or not, Dom. My boss for my day job came into town. He lives in Nashville. He works remotely. He came into town and we went to Meadowbrook and Racine, actually owned by the Romos. And we went there and we got on the course and I was doing the same thing. I was checking the score. I'm like, oh, this game's over. And then all of a sudden, oh my goodness, there's a home run by Urias. Oh, and then 4 hits later for him and 2 home runs later. I mean, they scored 15 runs. This was a game. I'll say this. This was a game where, again, I didn't watch it because I was on the course, but the feeling I had about this Brewers team when they won this game 15-7 after being down 7-0, and after they redeemed and picked up their teammate Aaron Ashby, and that's a really good feeling, by the way, picking up your teammate and having being picked up by your teammates for Ashby. Mm-hmm. It's an incredible feeling, and that just kind of gave me a warm, fuzzy feeling that this team could win the World Series. And I know we're going to comment on that when we talk about our next game, but that really gave me a good feeling about this club. I don't know about you.
It was a great feeling, especially coming into work the next day, and everyone's still kind of buzzing like, oh my gosh, that game. They sweep the Cubs, and there was so much extra added to it. They took the lead for good in the 4th inning, a go-ahead RBI by Jackie Bradley Jr. Weechu got hit by a pitch with the bases loaded. And then remember, Andy Haynes got ejected for arguing balls and strikes after Yelich struck out looking. It wasn't a bad pitch looking at the tape again that Yelich struck out looking on, but it was almost clanked by Wilson Contreras. I mean, it was a really, really bad presentation by Contreras behind the plate, which is what Andy saw and why he lit up the home plate umpire and gets tossed. Next batter is Willie Adames. Grand slam right center. I looked at StatCast on it. It would have been a home run in exactly one ballpark. American Family Field. It got out of the yard. That's all that mattered. StatCast says it was only a home run at American Family Field.
It's amazing.
Nonetheless, it was a homer, 14-7. And for good measure, Weechu added his second homer of the game, a solo shot in the 6th, making it 15-7. I want to blow your mind with the stat about Luis Urias. Luis Urias is the new Ryan Braun, meaning that he's a Cub-killer. Here's his numbers this year against the Cubs. He hit .356, had an 1194 OPS, 7 doubles, 5 homers, 23 runs batted in, 15 runs scored, and he had equal 10 walks and 10 strikeouts. That's a darn good player right there.
Sometimes you feel really good about the team that you're facing. I know that he probably started to feel really, really good when didn't he have a 5-hit game against this club too? Was that, I think
that was later. That was in August.
Yeah.
That was the blowout. Yep.
That's right. So, I mean,
blowout.
yeah. So sometimes you just feel really good about a team. I mean, and I will say Jake Arrieta really was a shell version of himself this year. So, I mean, that helped too, that he was throwing 90-mile-an-hour marshmallow balls, right? So, but yeah, you sometimes come to the ballpark and thinking, yes, I get to face the Cubs, or whatever team you feel really good about. And there's no explaining that other than just some sort of intuition or feeling about it. But he absolutely destroyed the Cubs. Need that to continue next year.
Absolutely. One last note on it. It was the first sweep of the Cubs since 2017. And it was their first sweep of the Cubs at home since 2013. So that's in a 3-game series, because later in the year they would sweep them in a 4-game series at Wrigley for the first time ever. So that's pretty cool. That's it for game number 4 on our top 20 countdown. Brewers beat the Cubs 15-7 with 15 unanswered runs. They would improve to 48-33 and effectively eliminate the Cubs for division race crown. So pretty crazy stuff. As before we get to game number 3 on our countdown, it is Super Week, brought to you by Get Upside, and there's no better place to get the coverage of the big game than the Locked On NFL podcast, Locked On Bengals, and of course Locked On Rams. They're all in LA on Radio Row, and they're all covering the big game. And we're also brought to you by, of course, Bet Online. They've got you covered with props, odds, and lines more than ever before as football is pushing to the big game on Sunday. BetOnline.net remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just football. BetOnline has up-to-the-minute info on pro and college hoops, NHL, boxing, UFC, and along with real-time updates of current games. Don't wait to take advantage of the new amazing offers available for the 2022 season. BetOnline is where the game starts. All right, so if you've been paying attention to the countdown, you know that one game is suspiciously missing. We've always been teasing the no-hitter and the grand slam are coming. They're in the final episode. One game's been missing, the playoffs. Got to talk playoffs. Obviously, the season ended far sooner than Brewers fans had hoped, but it started off with a bang. Game 1 of the NLDS is our number 3 game on the countdown for the top 20. We're going to go back to October 8th. This year, American Family Field. Roof was closed. Ace matchup. Charlie Morton versus Corbin Burns. This was fun. I got to work this game for TBS, so it was cool to be there and see the energy in the building. Where were you watching this game?
I was actually at the stadium. The Brewers, because I was part of the broadcast team, I was able to get a couple of tickets. So I brought my wife Maggie and we went and this was a really, really fun game to watch. I actually watched it from the third base concourse most of the game. So, it was awesome.
I was sitting next to Don Orsillo and Jeff Francoeur up in the booth, giving the stats and everything. There's a lot of prep that goes into this, and it was fun to look back. I made my one-sheeters and my packets and everything, and looking back at the prep of this game. There's a lot that goes into it, man. It was a lot of fun to do the playoffs. It was my first time working the playoffs since 2012, Oakland. So it's been a long time for me that I've worked an actual MLB playoff game. So
what were you, like 12?
I was 18 years old, freshly 18.
Wow.
I was a runner for the ALDS with the PR staff with the Oakland A's, and also helped out our radio by collecting the live sound from the press conference room. So a runner.
Cool.
Look it up, kids.
That's awesome.
It was a cool job, and stayed in the world ever since. But let's talk about the game itself. Corbin Burns, and this is a note that I had actually handed to Don Orsillo, is that Corbin Burns' worst inning, like most starters, is the first inning, and he was struggling in the top of the first. There's adrenaline you can imagine, but this wasn't just adrenaline. You know, we've talked about the fact that he takes a few innings, a few pitches to get that cutter grip right. He wasn't quite hitting his spots yet. What did you see from Corbin that you could tell from that first inning of what he was struggling with?
Well, I saw that this was a situation where this kid comes onto the scene as the best pitcher in baseball. I mean, he won the Cy Young, so I mean, he's literally the best pitcher in baseball, and he just, like, from 2019, probably the worst starter in all of major leagues to now the Cy Young in a matter of a 2-year span. Now all the bright lights, the super bright lights are on you now in the playoffs, and so, man, it's a different animal. If you've never done it, and I've never played in a big league playoff game, so I can't tell you, but I did witness guys like Prince Fielder, who are really, really good players. The first time they get into the playoffs, they have a hard time kind of calming themselves down until they can get comfortable and understand that, hey, this is still just a baseball game. That mound is still 60 feet, 6 inches away from home plate. I think it just takes an inning or two to kind of settle your nerves, because these really good players like Corbin Burns, like a Prince Fielder, they want to win so bad that it just kind of overtakes them from what Corbin Burns did really well this year, stay in the moment and execute. And I think it just took him a little while just to kind of settle those nerves down.
And he got it done, though, thanks to an epic double play turn by Rowdy Tellez on a chopper from Ozzie Albies. It was a weird play over to first. Rowdy led him to the bag. He steps on it and then fires home for the tag play on Jorge Soler. They get the double play. They get out of the inning one batter later. It was the play that Burns needed. Burns would get a strikeout to end the inning, and walking off the mound, he yelled and finally got himself to lock in. And he was, that was your chance kind of thing. He locked in the rest of the game. He only allowed 2 hits over 6 shutout innings. He was really, really good. But going back to your experience, Port, this is probably my favorite note from my packet that I gave TBS. Charlie Morton looked like an experienced pitcher in the playoffs. I mean, He's one of the best. He's Uncle Charlie. Now, what he did, he struck out 8 of the first 12 batters, or 8 of the first 12 outs were strikeouts. And he struck out the side in the first. This is a guy that's been there, done that. Here's the note. Charlie Morton, heading into this postseason, had 61 and a third career innings pitched in the postseason. That is more combined than the Milwaukee Big Three of Burns, Woodruff, and Peralta. That tells you everything. 61 and a third for Charlie, the Big Three for the Brewers, 46 and a third. By 25 innings, or excuse me, 15 innings, math. I swear I'm a statistician. But it's crazy to think about that, and you saw the poise. He looked absolutely unhittable this entire start, except for one pitch.
Yeah, except for one pitch, and you said it right there. I mean, but yes, I was very worried about this this game because of how locked in Charlie Morton looked, and I was very worried about the rest of the series with how Charlie Morton was probably going to pitch on 3 days rest, and he did, and he looked unhittable all series long. But yeah, it was. And didn't he pitch he pitched in Game 7 of the World Series when the Astros won it all in 2018
with 22
or 17
or something consecutive curveballs to win it. Yes, he was on the mound. He was the winning pitcher in Game 7 in 2017.
Yeah, it looked like a stroll in the park for him, quite frankly, and he was just executing pitch after pitch. I mean, it was really electric stuff, and I thought the Brewers were in trouble. And obviously, getting out of that first inning for Burns was huge. But yeah, you did mention the one mistake. And that was such an electric moment, and I'll let you take that away.
Well, right before that pitch, I want to go back to the previous batter, though. And this, I know you said you haven't played in a playoff game, but you and I have watched enough playoff baseball to understand how this works. And that leading off the bottom of the 7th was Avi Garcia. And on a 1-2 pitch, he was hit by a pitch. Now, this is the bottom of the 7th inning. The game's getting late. You understand what I'm getting at here. Charlie's an experienced pitcher that knows, oh boy, this is how it starts. This is how it starts to unravel something inauspicious like that. Maybe somebody who isn't quite familiar with how playoff baseball works, saying, oh, you got hit by a pitch, whatever. That's the number one thing, a leadoff guy getting on, but on top of it, a hit by pitch with 2 strikes. That's what was huge leading into the Rowdy homer.
Especially, that's a great point, Don, because especially with how he was rolling, he was executing. And like you said, kind of one that just got away from him a little bit, 2 strikes. He's an out at that point, right? And then He's on base. So, yeah, totally agree with that. But, yeah, and then obviously, again, Rowdy put a charge into that one. That was one of the most electric moments I've ever witnessed at a stadium.
It was amazing. And the reason I bring that up, though, too, is that you start guiding, you start worrying, you start thinking about it. Even with 2 strikes, you're all right, don't hit him again, And Rowdy, he fights off a really good pitch on a 1-2 count, and he breaks his bat on it. All right, it was a pitch that came in on his hands, and he loops it foul, and he broke his bat, just a little splinter. And he goes back to the dugout, there's a little pause, catch your breath, figure out what you saw, and then go up there ready to fight. And it's Charlie who made the bigger mistake by leaving a fastball, middle in, bomba. Rowdy didn't miss it, and a no-doubt blast to right center. He knew as soon as he hit it. The crowd knew as soon as he hit it. Don Rosillo knew as soon as he hit it. Jeff Levering next door knew it as soon as he hit it. It was incredible. The sound off the bat, the sound of the crowd, the fireworks, the lights, everything. That I hope, I obviously hope that we have the Brewers in the postseason again in 2022. But I hope that people understand baseball becomes a drag and it gets lull and it gets a long time. I get that. But when you are in playoff baseball, there is a rush that is not like anything else in any other sport, where it's a slow build. And this just was the volcano erupting for Rowdy Tellez and the Brewers.
And I'm biased because I think at AmFam Field, it's a little bit more electric. There's a little bit more energy and buzz in the stadium than any other place that I've seen a playoff game.
Emphasis on the word buzz, I think. I know what you're going with there.
Yeah, well, I didn't even think of that. But yeah, definitely so on that front. But I was next to, like I said, I was on the third base concourse, and I was pacing back and forth. I'm like, they got to get a run here. And he hit that ball, and among the group that I was with, I jumped up super high. I still have a little bit of hops, Dom. As soon as he hit that, everybody else was still a little bit like, okay, is that caught? I mean, I knew it was gone right off the bat. It was a missile. It was a line drive that got out of here in a hurry, and it was loud. And I was jumping up and down. There was my wife, and then my brother-in-law, my wife's little brother Ricky, and then some guy with a huge plate of nachos that went everywhere as soon as as soon as he knew it was gone. So it was absolutely epic, that home run, and it obviously put the Brewers up 2-1 at that point.
2-0 at that point. It was the first runs of the game.
That's right.
And it was 109 off the bat, 411 distance, 25-degree launch angle, the definition of a barrel. Now, the reason why you think it was 2-1 is because in the 8th inning, Jock Peterson would hit a solo home run off Adrian Hauser. I want to talk about Adrian Hauser briefly, though, too, because remember, as we unfortunately remember, Devin Williams was out for the playoffs, breaking his hand. So there was always this question, who's going to have the 7th and the 8th before you get to Hader? Because Burns just gave you 6 innings, all right? And now, in the top of the 7th, it was Adrian Hauser, and it's still a scoreless game. So who's going to have the 8th? Do you throw Hauser back out there, or do you go with somebody else? And I thought it was significant that they didn't go with Brad Boxberger in the 8th, and instead they kept Hauser back out there. He got 3 quick ground ball outs in the 8th inning. They threw Hauser back out there. They had Aaron Ashby loosening the bullpen in case the pitcher spot came up, and Brian Snitker decided to pinch hit Jock Peterson, which is exactly what he did. Maybe you would think, okay, lefty, bring in Ashby to face Peterson, and he has to burn Peterson and bring somebody else on or something. Decided to stick with Hauser. There were 2 outs, nobody on. You're up 2-0. One swing wasn't going to lose the game. But, and then Jock, a professional swing, goes into the Brewers bullpen, left center field, and it was the start of Jocktober with the pearls and everything. But you tip your cap on that. He made a good swing. But I thought it was very significant, and I really look forward to seeing what Adrian Hauser does with that confidence of saying, all right, we believe in you getting this out. Sure, he didn't get the out, but he finished the inning and got out of it and bridged it to Hader.
I was nervous when Adrian Hauser came into the game, only because this was a new version of Adrian Hauser that we witnessed this year from previous years, right? I talked about this a bunch. His ability to now command his pitches instead of just throw his pitches. Same stuff, just now had the ability to command it and put it where he wants. Again, different animal once you get into the playoffs. And this was a guy, everybody remember, he used to throw up on the mound. He used to get so nervous, right? So I'm like, okay, this is the playoff baseball, different animal. Is he going to show up and need a batter or two to figure it out? And he was so good this game. And I was so impressed by him and his ability to stay present and stay calm and stay in the moment and execute his stuff. The same thing that we saw all year, even better. I think he really kind of like took a step this year, and it really solidified himself in this playoff game as well. So I was really excited for Adrian Hauser, and like you said, his ability to come back after that home run that he gave up. But yeah, I was on a little bit more pins and needles at that point after he did give up that home run, because you still have to face a really tough middle of the Braves order.
It was very tough, and obviously Peterson tagged him for it. And just to finish the thought of why you don't go with Boxberger in that moment, Boxberger, remember, had a terrible September. He only threw 8 2/3 innings in September. He allowed 10 earned runs and 3 home runs. So that's part of the reason why they were trying to avoid Boxberger in game 1 while they had the lead and maybe save him for game 2. You even saw Freddie Peralta loosening up in the bullpen, remember, in game 1. And I remember I handed it, that Freddie Peralta is loosening. I'm the spotter for the truck. I'm the one that has to communicate to the truck saying who's in the bullpen so they can make the graphic ready when you see on TV when they show that. That doesn't happen by accident. Somebody has to call that out. So when I call out that Freddie Peralta is warming in the bullpen and I hand that card to Don Orsillo, he looks at me like, what? No way. I'm like, yeah, way. I've seen him all year. And he goes, no way. No. I'm not saying it until we show it. Literally, as he said that, we showed Freddie Peralta in the bullpen. He goes, well, Freddie Peralta is loosening in the bullpen. What do you think this? It was a very, very creative. What could you expect from Greg Counsell? Just trying to get it to the 9th, where Josh Hader, albeit it was a little shaky at first, they got the go-ahead run to the plates, and ironically enough, it was Orlando Arcia who was the final out of Game 1, who of course had the walk-off in the first game of the year in that ballpark this year, is the final out of Game 1 of the NLDS. Hader gets his first career postseason save. Brewers win 2-1 in Game 1 of the NLDS.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't know if you remember, because you were up in the booth, but you could feel a weird feeling that Orlando Arcia was coming up to the plate. It was like a very eerie, like the baseball gods are going to kind of strike down the Brewers.
There was a leadoff walk to Freddie Freeman. So it was like, oh boy, something wacky's going to happen.
And he hit a ground ball that was kind of like weirdly hit right, to Colton Wong to end the game, right?
Yeah, that it
And
was. It looked like Wong wanted to flip it to second, but
yeah,
because of the defensive positioning, Adames was so far away from second that he wasn't going to be able to make it there in time.
it was very weird. It was odd. I thought something was going to go wrong, and it wasn't me being a pessimist. It was just me being like, this is too weird. Like the baseball gods are kind of at play right now, and I thought something was going to go wrong. Thank goodness it didn't. And Wong was able to get that last out, and that was, I thought the Brewers were going to win the World Series after they went 1-0 here against the Braves, because this Braves team was good. They had 3 really, really good starting pitchers. They had obviously a really good bullpen that they showed to be really, really good in the postseason. I thought the Brewers were going to win the World Series after they won this game. I thought they were out of the woods kind of in the divisional series, but obviously it was to no avail. They lose the next 3 to the Cubs, to the Braves. But it was a tough pill to swallow because I felt really good about their chances at this point.
Mm-hmm. It is what it is. You take it on the chin and you get better. And that's game 3 of our top 20 countdown. So we all know what the top 2 are, but what order are they going to be in? That's the real question. Is the grand slam number 1 or is the no hitter number 1? Remains to be seen. Programming note: today's our last episode of the week, unless something crazy happens with Rob Manfred's press conference later today. No episode tomorrow. We'll be back on Monday with Mailbag Monday. I don't want to say who it is yet for our guest on Tuesday, but I know everyone is going to love them. It is going to be a great guest for our Interrogation Tuesday. I'm not giving it away yet, but it's going to be a really, really good one. And the hint is they never played for the Milwaukee Brewers. So that really opens things up. I know
no one's going to get it off of that, but
it's still a great guest.
Better tune in for this one. It is going to be really, really fun and great.
Yes, absolutely. Vinny, thanks as always. Hope you're going to be watching my Suns survive against the Bucks as they try to salvage, in Phoenix tonight. Look, I know I live in Milwaukee now and everything. It's where I'm from, man. Go Suns. But it's all respect. Like, I absolutely respect the Bucks and what they did last year. It hurt my heart deep down, but hey, I'm happy for the Bucks. But it's 2022. This is our year, man. I'm fighting back. I'm fighting for my life, man. You guys had one, okay? We've never had one, okay? So that's all I have.
Didn't Barkley win one there?
No, Barkley. He never won one. Michael Jordan got in the freaking way.
Oh man. Okay.
It's all good. It's all good. And then the Spurs and Kobe. Okay. Oh, okay. Damn, I know. Thunder Dan. So it is what it is. Can't wait to watch tonight. And hopefully we have baseball soon so I don't have to be so obsessed with basketball right now. But for Vinny Rottino, I'm Dominic Cotroneo. Thanks so much for listening. We will see you next week on Monday. Until then, keep on swinging.
You are Locked On Brewers, your daily Milwaukee Brewers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.